Folks like you ought to appreciate that I even let you wait on me. The diamond-clad woman snarled, intentionally spilling her wine glass. The waiter was silent, eyes fixed downward as liquid trickled onto the hospital bill, bulging from his pocket. A silver-haired man observed from across the room and rose with steadfast resolve. Why do we praise those who belittle diligent individuals? And what happens when someone actually says enough? Welcome to Deep Story Dispatch. Let's dig into what really happened. Michael was 23, a final-year medical student who worked at the trendy Biastra Royal, not by choice, but by necessity. Each night after long hospital rotations, he'd shed his white coat for a server's uniform, gliding from table to table in quiet efficiency. Another late night, his supervisor asked, eyeing Michael adjusting his tie. Michael nodded. Until midnight, I need the hours. What his coworkers didn't know was that 70% of his wages went to care for his 8-year-old sister, Emma, battling a rare leukemia since their parents' car accident 2 years prior. Between hospital rounds and restaurant shifts, Michael worked 18 hours a day, fueled by determination and coffee. The most promising young doctor I've seen in decades, his professor had said last week. Michael carried that compliment close with Emma's photo in his pocket, her smile missing front teeth, her head covered in a colorful scarf. It was Thursday night when Eleanor Harrington walked in, wife of real estate tycoon James Harrington. She'd selected Biastra Royal for her 45th birthday bash. You waiter. She snapped her fingers like commanding a dog. This table is unacceptable. Move us now. The manager scurried over. Mrs. Harrington. So lovely to have you again. We'll reschedule immediately. Michael watched as other servers visibly avoided eye contact, none volunteering to take her table. She's gotten 3 people fired, whispered Alicia, another server. We actually draw straws when she makes reservations. Michael was stuck with Mrs. Harrington's table. For 2 hours, nothing seemed to please her. The water was too cold, the bread too warm, the lighting too dim, then too bright. Each complaint delivered with a cutting remark about standards and competence. The breaking point occurred when Michael accidentally dripped a tiny amount of sauce onto Mrs. Harrington's designer handbag. Look what you've done. She screeched, every eye in the restaurant turning toward the drama. I'm terribly sorry, ma'am. Let me sorry. She grabbed her wine glass and deliberately hurled the red liquid onto Michael's face and chest. My bag costs more than you'll make in a year. Clearly, your mother never taught you proper service. The restaurant was silent. A couple of guests captured the scene on their phones, but no one intervened. Red wine dripped down Michael's. Please let us give you our best champagne on us. Michael remained there, still dripping, invisible. In the break room, Michael blotted his stained shirt with club soda, shaking hands. Just apologize, his manager suggested, resting against the doorframe. We can't afford to lose customers like the Harringtons. She threw wine at me, Michael said. The cameras caught everything. The manager sighed. The customer is always right. That's policy. Even when they're objectively wrong, especially then. Look, I know it's not fair, but you have medical school loans, right? And your sister's treatments. Can you afford principals now? Michael was silent. His $200,000 in student loans towered above him. Emma's treatments were $4,000 a month. Principals were costly. I've made 3 reports about customer harassment, Michael said. All sitting in your drawer and they'll remain there. That's reality. When Michael came back to the floor, hushed conversations occurred. He listened for whispers. He must have rubbed her the wrong way somehow. And that's service industry for you. You take the abuse. Meanwhile, Mrs. Harrington was sipping free champagne, boasting of her version of events where an incompetent server had deliberately ruined her evening in designer purse. By morning, video clips were shared online. Local news reported the commotion at Biastra Royal, involving philanthropist Eleanor Harrington, with her social standing in focus and not her manners. The owner of the restaurant emailed Michael for a proper written apology in order to keep the peace and secure the establishment's reputation. You signed up for this job, his roommate said. When Michael showed him the email, it comes with the territory. Serving food does, being dehumanized does not. That night, Michael came back to work. The stares from colleagues and customers made him an exhibition. During his break, he brought out Emma's latest test results and the photo of her brave smile. As he read over the worrying numbers, the photo slipped out of his hands. An older man with silver hair stooped to pick it up. Yours, Shanner, he asked, returning it. My sister, Michael replied promptly, shoving it into his pocket. The man scrutinized Michael with intense interest. You look familiar, young man. I've been working here for around 18 months, sir. Not from here, no. The man held out his hand. Dr. James Wilson, I've just recently resumed practice at Memorial, after 30 years with Johns Hopkins. Michael's eyes went wide. The pediatric oncologist, your report on uncommon lymphus was groundbreaking. I lectured on it last semester. Dr. Wilson snapped his fingers. That's it. You're the student doc. Garrison spoke of excellent presentation on unusual presentations in child leukemia. Their moment was broken by a disturbance at the door. Eleanor Harrington had returned again, accompanied this time by friends. Michael flinched. Dr. Wilson observed. Is something wrong? I should be getting back to work, Michael said, making for the kitchen. Mrs. Harrington saw him and called out loudly. I don't believe they still hire that incompetent boy. One phoned the hospital board and he'll never be allowed to practice medicine in this state. Dr. Wilson's expression altered as recognition flickered, connecting her name to a patient years gone. In the kitchen, the manager cornered Michael. Mrs. Harrington is requesting a different waiter. Gladly. And she's requesting that you be fired. For what? Existing. The manager looked crumpled. Michael, her husband, sits on the hospital board. Consider your career. I'm considering my dignity, Michael said, stripping off the apron, and my sister who needs me to be someone that she can admire. Don't be dramatic, you need this job. What I need is to work somewhere that appreciates a $5,000 handbag less than basic human decency. Who has the greatest responsibility when employees are treated this way? Employers, customers, or society? Share your opinion. The restaurant hummed with charged tension as Michael moved out of the kitchen, having made this his last shift no matter what. Mrs. Harrington was holding court at her table, voice deliberately loud. Do you know who my husband is? That boy will never complete medical school once James hears about this. The manager walked over to Michael. She wants you to apologize publicly for what? Being whined assaulted, for attitude. Please, Michael, consider your future. Mrs. Harrington saw them and called out, you come here. Michael walked over to her table, standing tall despite his humiliation. Are you the manager? She asked the older man who had followed Michael. No, Mrs. Harrington. I'm not the manager, Dr. Wilson replied calmly. Her head snapped up at the sound of her name from a stranger. Hello, Eleanor, Dr. Wilson continued. It's been quite some time. Confusion crossed her features, then slow recognition. Dr. Wilson, Tyler's doctor, 15 years now. Yes, your son has grown into a fine young man, pre-med at Stanford, I believe. She nodded, suddenly uncertain. You two know each other? She gestured between Michael and the doctor. This young man, Dr. Wilson, placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. This is the brilliant student I mentioned at the Children's Hospital fundraiser last month. The one researching rare leukemia variants. Mrs. Harrington's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. What? You don't know Eleanor, Dr. Wilson continued. His voice gentle but firm, is that Michael's sister Emma has the same rare form of leukemia Tyler had. The restaurant had gone completely silent, everyone listening. Furthermore, Dr. Wilson continued, Michael has donated bone marrow 3 times to anonymous recipients in the National Registry. Tyler was recipient number 2. Mrs. Harrington's face drained of color. The worthless young man you've been trying to get fired has cells currently keeping your son alive. Michael looked stunned. I never knew who received my donations. Medical privacy, Dr. Wilson explained, but I recognized your name in the database during Tyler's last checkup. Mrs. Harrington set down her glass with trembling hands. I didn't know, how could you? But perhaps that's the point, Dr. Wilson replied. We never truly know the battles others are fighting, or the value they bring to the world, particularly when we don't bother to look beyond appearances. The manager, suddenly solicitous, stepped forward. Michael, are you all right? Do you need to sit down? Michael suppressed a bitter laugh at the manager's abrupt concern. Mrs. S. Harrington stood up, her composure cracked. Tyler is studying medicine because he wants to be like the anonymous donor who saved him. She turned to Michael, tears breaking through her perfect makeup. I'm so sorry. My behavior was inexcusable. She began removing her diamond bracelet. Please accept this as no, Michael said gently, stopping her. Money doesn't fix everything, Mrs. Harrington. Then what can I do? Respect isn't something you buy. It's something you give freely to everyone, regardless of their position or income. Does justice delayed still have meaning, or do we need fundamental changes in society? Share your thoughts. 6 months passed. The restaurant's walls now displayed a framed mutual respect code, applying equally to staff and customers. Eleanor Harrington had established a full scholarship for Emma's treatments and Michael's medical education. The viral video had sparked a number respect service workers movement that transformed workplace policies across the city, then the country. Dr. Wilson had invited Michael to join his research team, studying innovative approaches to childhood leukemia, work that might one day help thousands of children like Emma. Eleanor Harrington, meanwhile, had found unlikely purpose as an advocate against workplace bullying. The woman who once snapped her fingers at servers now spoke at conferences about respect across social divides. A person's value isn't measured by their assets, she told a television interviewer, but by how they treat others. Restaurants nationwide implemented zero-tolerance policies against harassment, replacing the outdated "customer is always right" mantra with "mutual dignity required." News coverage shifted from sensational clips to serious discussions about class division and labor rights. Sometimes the most important people are the ones we overlook. Read the headline of a major magazine featuring Michael and Eleanor's story. On a bright spring morning, Michael stood in Emma's hospital room holding discharge papers. After 2 years of fighting, her cancer was in remission. "Does this mean I can go to real school now?" Emma asked, stowing her few possessions. "Real school, real playground, real everything," Michael vowed. Weeks later at his medical school graduation ceremony, Michael spoke to his peers. "At times our darkest hour brings us our greatest change." In the audience, Eleanor Harrington was the first to rise and applaud, no longer, having gained compassion through humility. Wilson had endowed a research fellowship in Emma's honor, supporting future oncologists from disadvantaged backgrounds, and Eleanor volunteered once a week, reading stories to children in the oncology unit, where her son had once been treated, and where Emma had found healing. "I believed that wealth was power," she told Michael after the ceremony. "But true power is in how many lives you touch for good." As they departed the auditorium, Michael watched as a young waiter stumbled under a heavy tray at the reception. Without hesitation, Eleanor stepped forward to hold open the door for him. "Thank you, ma'am," the surprised server said. "No," Eleanor said with warm sincerity. "Thank you for serving." The smallest actions usually betray the most profound changes. A civilized world is measured by how we treat people who serve us. Has that ever happened to you? Can one moment turn a whole life around? Share your experience. Subscribe to see more stories of compassion and change in society. Deep Story Dispatch does not merely tell stories, we inspire justice. This is where good people once ignored are brought back to dignity. Where an apology long delayed may yet heal, and where you, the viewer, get to see things made right. If your heart has ever moved with injustice, join us. We reported their story. You made it meaningful.